First off, incredibly honoured to be here today. I can't even begin to recall the countless times that I'm supposed to have been tied in my room getting ready for school the next day, but I've decided to put a little TED talk on in the back and been totally engulfed by all the words of the speakers on there. So it's such an honour for me to be here today in a room full of these incredible speakers which will follow me as well. I'm really excited to see everybody else before I have to even get the train to get back home. But as you probably would have noticed, I'm wearing some glitzy arms here, and you may have also figured by this point that they are actually prosthetics. And from the introduction earlier, I'm missing both my hands. Because of this, I have a relatively long life story, to put it quite bluntly, which I'm going to be sharing with you today, but I'm going to shorten it down as much as possible. So, when I was 15 months old, I contracted meningococcal septicemia strain B, which is a form of blood poisoning. And I was basically told that I was going to die. I was given 0% chance of survival, especially being so small at the time too. Meningitis is a disease that builds and kills extremely fast, so there really didn't seem like there was much hope for me. But obviously I'm here now, aren't I? And it was after 1 week in intensive care, 3 weeks in recovery, a secondary infection, and 10 blood transfusions, that's a lot. Somehow I managed to pull through, I survived, and I'm able to be here speaking to you all today. But they did have to amputate my hands though, because the septicemia had well and truly destroyed that part of my body. Growing up without hands, I was starting to feel really frustrated with things. Simple things like just opening a door. I was in a room one day with my mum, just over there, and I basically wanted in the other room. But I thought that just because I had no hands, that I couldn't open that door by myself. So I did what any other 2-year-old would do if they felt they couldn't do something. I asked my mum to do it for me. But she told me no. She told me I could easily open that door all by myself if only I would just try. Looking back on it, I really do think it must have been really hard for her, because she really did have to be cruel to be kind, 100%. But I totally thank her for it now, because I feel like that moment really shaped my personality and how independent I am here today. That's not to say I didn't throw a little bit of a tantrum. I was 2 after all. But ultimately she was right. I could easily open that door all by myself if only I would just try. And it didn't take me very long either, maybe like 5 minutes. But I accomplished that goal, and my mum says she'll never forget the look on my face and how it just lit up after accomplishing even that such a small goal of opening a door. I truly believe this was the point in my life where I realised that actually I did have a choice. And that choice was that I could sit back and let everyone do things for me, or I could take charge and try and do things myself, even though they may be a little bit more difficult or I had to adapt a certain way. I think it's fair to say that this experience quite literally opened hundreds of doors for me. Growing up a little bit older now, I really wanted to start getting into prosthetics, but it was then I realised there really wasn't an awful lot out there. Only really realistic designs that were honestly quite scary. I remember being in a restaurant with my family on multiple occasions, just trying to enjoy a meal, but every single person's eyes in that restaurant would always be on me, or more so, my hands at the time. And the thing is, of course, this didn't make me very comfortable, and especially so that they didn't look very happy in their faces. They looked almost disgusted, I would say, but of course they weren't. It was more honestly that they were just really confused. They were looking at my hands, trying to figure out whether they were real, whether they were fake, and what they even were. Because they looked so realistically, but they moved so robotically, it actually came off quite uncanny. But the thing is, these hands didn't help me very much either. As I mentioned, they moved really robotically, they were really slow moving, and they couldn't even open wide enough to hold a cup. So I kind of got to the point where I was just like, why am I even wearing these? They're supposed to be for the comfort of others, but they're having quite the opposite effect, and they're not helping me either. But the thing is, this was the best technology out there at the time. So that's when I decided to make myself a goal. To work with prosthetic companies to create a useful prosthetic arm and make that available for kids especially. But around this time, technology was really just stuck. We saw so many incredible prosthetic devices being made all over the place, but the thing was that they were all for adults. When we approached these companies, which we did countless times, time and time again, we were shut down with the exact same response, which was technology could never shrink down small enough to fit into a child-sized hand. This was always the issue, and after about a year of trying, we came to the conclusion that I actually might just have to take a break and let technology catch up to my crazy ambitions that were still going on in my head. But in the meantime, I didn't want to just sit and do nothing while I wait for technology to catch up. So I decided to make a list of all the things I really wanted or didn't want in my next prosthetic arm. So I've compiled a list of the top 3 here today to share. Number 1 being, hands don't have to look so lifelike. Hands in the past, as I mentioned, were made to look really realistic. And I was never trying to hide the fact I had no hands. It was never something that I wanted to mask or shy away from. But that's exactly what I've been doing up until this point. I thought, why not go the complete opposite way? Secondly, they had to help with everyday tasks. Hands in the past, as I mentioned as well, moved really slowly, really robotically, and they didn't help much at all. They didn't open wide enough to hold a cup, and it made everyday tasks nearly impossible. You were literally just opening and closing, and there weren't any other multi-grips, and you can imagine all the things you do with your hand every day. And last but definitely not least, they had to make you feel good. Hands in the past made me feel like I should almost be ashamed to have no hands. Because it was almost like you had to look like everybody else just to be treated like a normal person and to have a normal life. Now this to me was ethically wrong in so many ways, and that for me really needed to change. I'm so excited to now talk about the company that I'm working with now. We basically found them through an appeal they put out online. They were looking for a child below the elbow amputee to help them develop their prosthetics. We stumbled across that, always on the lookout for new things that were up and coming, especially regarding technology and prosthetic arms. So I found it, realised I fit the requirements of what they were looking for. I'd been building up that muscle used to operate prosthetics ever since I was 2 years old. I'd had experience giving my feedback to other prosthetic companies in the past, and I wanted to get involved. So we got in touch, and eventually they picked me out of all the other applicants to be their first child in the UK to help them start developing their prosthetics, which I couldn't wait for. I'm an ambassador for this company, and in my own right travel around speaking about their work and sharing my story, which I am here today. Thank you for having me. Meanwhile, still wearing these bionic arms every day and giving my brutally honest feedback to tell them what is good, what is bad, what I think could be improved, and also create my own little inventions in these arms to be used all over the world, which I think is very cool. Then I decided to make myself another goal. These hands and the way people have reacted to them have given me so much confidence that I felt this stigma of prosthetics being only a medical device could now finally be removed. We'd finally gotten away from the whole it's bad to be different thing. And actually, I felt like these prosthetic arms had the potential to be insanely fashionable and stylish. I decided there was no need to hide anymore, and people with disabilities should be proud, because after all, that's what makes you unique. I like to think of my bionic arms as a really awesome fashion accessory, as well as a medical device, like a new pair of shoes or a handbag. And that's not something I ever thought I'd be able to say looking at the prosthetics that I was wearing previously. But nowadays, I do a lot of modelling with my bionic arms, trying to change that stereotypical model look that everybody sees. And I post these on my social media. I like to put them out alongside inspirational quotes to hopefully brighten up the day of anybody who happens to stumble across my page. And I'm always really grateful for all the positive feedback, because obviously not only does it make me feel good, but lots of other people with the same disability or difference that they share with me, they're seeing these positive comments about their difference too, and it can only make them feel great as well. Social media is a great way for people to reach out to me. people who are interested in science and technology, people who have a disability, the same as mine or maybe completely different but they still manage to relate in a certain way, people who want to be inspired, or people who just want to follow my journey. Everyone's welcome, and I love the accepting community we have on there. You know, social media gets such a bad name, and don't get me wrong, I totally get that. But I feel like it isn't talked about enough, the beauty and the magic that can come from a platform where people build each other up rather than constantly tear each other down. And if I do get that odd comment, which means everybody does, can't escape them, I just spin it straight away. I don't have time for the haters, and neither should you or anybody else for that matter. Ever since I was 4 years old, I've never let my disability define me, and I've most definitely never let it get in the way of anything that I wanted to achieve. Because of this attitude, I've gotten to become a motivational speaker like I am here today, sharing my story and getting to travel all around the world. I have my platform on social media where I talk about the things that I'm passionate about and I have people who will listen. I've become a TV presenter, and even most recently I won a singing competition where I sang and rapped the lyrics that I myself wrote. Appearing in newspapers, TV presenter, and even most recently I won a singing competition where I got to sing and rap the lyrics that I myself wrote. After being told since the very first time I lost my hands, first of all that she'd never live, then she'll never walk and she'll never run. Being told time and time again what you can and can't and won't be able to do. The thing is, none of this was ever true, and all it really did was fuel me with determination and even more incentive to go out and try things that I never would have even attempted before, reaching even further than the stars. And me being here today is proof that the only limitations you have are the ones which you put on yourself. But the big question is, if I could go back in time and change what happened to me when I was so young and not lose my hands, would I take that? And honestly, I get asked this question on pretty much a daily basis at this point, and the answer is no, I probably wouldn't. Because I've gotten to do so many amazing things, I've had so many phenomenal opportunities, and I've gotten to meet so many incredible people. I mean, this happened, and it's still hard to believe. All of this would never have happened if, yes, I didn't lose my hands when I was so young. But when it happened, I didn't just sit back, just dwell in my own pity. I wanted to make a difference to the world, as small as that might be. I just knew I wanted to make a positive impact. And I knew I wanted to share my story. So when I'm doing my presentations, I always like to leave it on either a challenge or a quote. And I thought today, just for the occasion, why not do both? So the challenge I want to set for everybody here today is just to take a step back, look at your life and think about, is there anything that you would have really wanted to achieve but told yourself that you couldn't? Or any factor in the way telling yourself that that's what's stopping you, and because of this, I can't. If you do have anything like that, I want you to take this opportunity in the days going forward to take 3 steps to accomplish that goal. And I guarantee the pride that you'll feel afterwards, after telling yourself you can't for so many years, it will be well worth it. The quote I wanted to leave with you today, it felt really relevant and really important to sharing experiences and our stories. It's important that we share experiences with other people. Your story will heal you, and your story will heal somebody else. When you tell your story, you free yourself and give other people permission to acknowledge their own story. This is my story. What's yours?